Hey everyone, so I am back. I know it's been a while, maybe a long time, a millennium, whatever you want to call it. But I wanted to come back on here and be honest with myself and with everybody that watches my channel, my tutorials. I have been going through a lot and I couldn't figure out what to do with my life for a couple of months, actually for like a year and a half to be honest. And today I was walking home and this song came on when I was walking home in my earphones, and it's a song that I used to sing to my dog, and it made me reminisce in some memories that I had from my old house. So, I got emotional and I started crying, and I'll probably cry in this video. It's gonna be a very difficult topic to cover because it's not something that I'm very open about that I went through in my life. And I feel that it's only fair for me to feel comfortable or force myself to be comfortable out of my comfort zone and share my story, because there could be thousands of people out there who could be going through the same thing, and maybe my story can help somebody lift their spirits up. You never know. I wish I could have seen the videos or the stories that I want to share. I wish I could have seen those videos when I was going through them, because I think it would have helped me figure out things that I'm going through or that I was going through at the time. So that's why I'm going to share my story with you guys. So let's go back to 2016. I was enrolled in college. I was a full-time college student, and I was taking a minimum, I think, of like 12 units at Imperial Valley College in a small town called El Centro, and it's in Southern California. It's actually a border town to Mexico. Most people don't know this because it's a very small town, but I was very close to the border of Mexico, and my community college just so happened to be a few minutes from home. And I've lived in this home for about almost 10 years. It was a big part of my life, a big part of my childhood and adolescence. I lived in that house since I was about 12 or 13 years old. And I was forced to move out of there when I was 19, going on 20 years old. So basically, I was so comfortable there. It was not our dream home for my family and I, which consists of my mom, my dad, my sister, and I. My older brother does not live with us. He is 3 years older than me. I am now 21. He's going to be 24 or 25 this year. So he's older and he has his own life, and I'm just very happy for him that he was able to get out of, the house before all of this happened. And I was very comfortable and just living my life, going to college, going out with my friends to eat, spending my financial aid. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that spent their first financial aid check on, stupidities when I did not have my priorities straight. I'm gonna be honest, I spent an entire financial aid check in the time span of a week. That's insane, guys. I don't even remember what I bought at the time. But that was my life, going out to the movies, going out to eat with my friends. I was not a party person, and I never have been. I do drink now and go out once in a while to the clubs with my boyfriend and our friends. But as far as going back to 2016, I thought I was, living the life, and my life may not have been perfect or the way I wanted it to be back then. I considered at the time to have had my struggles and my life stressors and things I couldn't handle, and my world was falling apart. But now that I look back, I'm down. I had everything that I could have ever wanted. And that's what happens when you lose everything. It's when you realize that you did have everything. So that house where we lived in for almost 10 years, my grandparents helped us buy it. It was under my grandpa's name, and my parents and I were paying for it for 9 years. And my grandfather and my mother have never had a stable relationship. This is something I don't really like talking about on camera because it's not my place or my situation to share. But it's part of why things happened the way they did, so I have to explain to you guys so you can understand what I had to go through. And my grandfather has just made a lot of mistakes throughout his life, and he continues to make them. He's a very difficult person to make decisions with as a family. It's very hard to trust somebody when they don't do what they say, or when they do the exact opposite behind your back, or they do vicious things to intentionally hurt you and your family. And I've learned over the years that family is not always blood. It's a sad truth. I consider family the people who have ever at one point supported me financially, provided a roof over my head, or a table to eat from, or a bed to sleep in. To me, that's family. People who have supported me in my most toughest, most vulnerable moments in life, when I was alone and struggling. People who gave me love when there was nobody else. That's family to me, not blood. And I had to cope with that, and I had to force it to sink into my brain that the family I thought I had was not what I thought it was. So I had to come to a realization that there were people in the family we could not trust, period. And there was a lot of conflict at this time in my life when the house was under my grandparents' name and we were paying for it, so they decided to get rid of the house without telling us. I will never to this day understand why we lost the house, but it was very difficult because my grandpa was in a sticky situation with the realtors and the management of the company. So the house went into foreclosure, and we had no choice but to move out because my grandfather did not want to help my parents sign some papers for what's called a modification, which basically is kind of a process to see if you can apply and reduce the, I don't know if it's the mortgage or the rent, can't remember, to be honest. I'm not an expert with real estate, but basically it was so that we could keep the house. And he was difficult about it and did not want to sign papers. He just chose to let the house go. And that was very upsetting for my parents and I because he did not pay a single penny for that home. The entire 9 years that we lived in it, that was our home. That was our safe place to be, to sleep, to go be with it together as a family. You know, it was where we spent the holidays. It was where my mother cooked homemade meals, where I had my friends over, where my best friend and I had movie nights, where my sister and I played together and spent time together, where we unwrapped gifts for Christmas and spent Halloween hours making costumes and dressing up and watching mom make food for the holidays. And it's just like all of that went down the drain because somebody that was supposed to be considered part of the family didn't want to help us keep the house. And I could not understand why somebody would not want something better for us and instead chose to make us suffer and go through the worst that I could imagine a family could go through. And at the time we had a pet. He was a mixed Chihuahua, and I used to tell everybody that he was my boyfriend. His name was Buddy. At the time I was not dating anyone, so literally the love of my life was my dog. Like, he was my baby. So I would come home from school, he would be so excited that he would pee on me sometimes, and I loved him so much, it didn't even bother me that he would pee on me. So I was just like, oh, my baby this, my baby that. He was a cuddler, so the first day we had ever adopted him, I remember it was for my sister's birthday, so he was a gift basically. We named him Buddy. He was a boy, and I remember the first night that we had him there, he couldn't sleep because we were trying to train him to sleep in his own bed, in his little playpen. and he kept crying and crying all night. And I think at this point it was probably like 1 a.m. and I'll never forget this night because this is what changed my relationship with my dog. I couldn't sleep because his crying was really loud. Even though we had a two-story house and my bedroom was upstairs, I could hear the dog. He was a puppy. He was only like 3 or 4 months old, I believe. So I came downstairs and I picked him up from his playpen, and immediately as I picked him up, he stopped crying. So I'm like, okay, well maybe this is what he wanted. He wanted somebody to hold him. So I took him to my room, and I'm like rocking him to sleep and giving him kisses, and we lay down on my bed, and I had two pillows on my bed because I had a queen bed like this one right here. So I put him on the pillow that was next to me while I slept on this side, and I plopped him on the pillow, and he rolled into a little ball, and he stayed close to my neck, and we fell asleep. And ever since the day that we adopted him, he would always, most of the time, sleep in my bed with me at night. So we cuddled every single night. And when we lost the house, we were forced to move out of there in a month. So it was a very stressful time in my life, and none of us were spending time or giving attention to our pet because we were so stressed out with everything that was going on, the bills, finishing signing paperwork, packing the entire house and cleaning it because there was just so many things over 9 years that we had to organize and get out of there. And the dog was not getting attention, so the dog was confused. He didn't know what was going on. We were all emotional, but not emotional at the same time. Like, we weren't showing emotion. We were just so stressed out. And we had to move out. And I remember after all that my grandpa made us go through, he tells us, well, you've been left with no choice since you don't have money to rent anywhere. So I guess you'll have to move in with us. So we moved into a very small 3-bedroom house where my grandparents lived, and it's their home, so they own the main bedroom, and the other 2 bedrooms, my parents shared one, and my sister and I shared the second bedroom. So the first day we moved in, my grandpa gets into a huge dispute with my mom over the dog. We couldn't keep the dog, even though we had a backyard and we had a front yard, and it was very nice for the dog to have that because he was an inside dog for 3 years. So, I thought it was perfect because, he'd have a yard to play in, and, he needed to be outdoors. But my grandfather had a strict rule with no pets. And it was very hard for us because I remember at the time my boyfriend and I had barely started dating. So we were not, like super into each other or that close. We were just still getting to know each other, and we had been friends for 4 months prior to getting into a relationship. So we got kicked out of our house in, I believe, March of 2016. And we moved in with my grandparents, and in May of 2016, my boyfriend officially asked me to be his boyfriend. So we started dating in May. My dog was long gone by then. But that first month of March, when we had moved into my grandparents, I was devastated because, I came crying to my boyfriend, we can't keep our dog. I don't know what to do. No one wants to take care of him. We just need someone to watch him until we can get out of here and, find a new place that's pet friendly. And he goes, oh, I could take care of him. And I was like, really? Because at the time he had a roommate, which was his best friend, and they had their own place. So I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. So I gave him my dog for like a month. But after that month, the owner from where my boyfriend and his best friend were renting didn't want my dog there. So I literally asked everybody I knew that loved pets, and nobody at the time could afford to take care of my dog. And it was devastating. So at this point, my dad and I would still go to our old house to pick up leftover mail from our mailbox. It was like a month after we had moved out. So one day, my dad picked me up from school, and he goes, we need to take the dog back to the adoption center. And I was like, why? Well, your grandpa doesn't want him there, and there's been another fight, and we can't bring it back or he's gonna kick us out. And I'm just like, why is this happening to us right now? Like, why is all this happening? So my dad and I went to go pick up the mail from our old house, and I picked up my dog from my boyfriend's place, and I told my boyfriend I'm gonna go turn him in. And we didn't really exchange words. It was just awkward, and he said he was sorry. I said don't worry about it. It's really not your fault. There's nothing else we can do at this point. So my dad and I picked up the mail, and Buddy was in my lap in the car, and we got off to the mailbox, and I left him in the car, but as I was getting out, I was putting the mail back in the car, and as I opened the door, he ran out of the car because our old house was 3 houses down from the mailbox, the main mailbox of our street. So I'm like, Buddy, come back. So here I am, chasing after my dog, thinking he's running away or something. And I realized he was leading me to the house. And when I got to the front door, he was scratching the front door of our house that we no longer lived in. And he was trying to get in because he knew that that was our home. And I had to pick him up because he was crying and he wanted to go inside. And, I couldn't explain to a dog, that's no longer our home. And it was really hard. So my dad, came up and he realized what was going on. And he started crying too. So we just took the dog back into the car. We drove to the shelter where we had adopted him, and my dad got off with me, but he didn't want to sign the papers because it was too much for him. There was this paper that we had to sign as a reason for why we were returning an adopted dog, because we had adopted him, which means we had agreed to the rights to protect the pet. So now we're returning it, and it looks bad on us. So my dad walks out at this point, and he didn't say goodbye to the dog. And I'm signing the papers and, talking to the people at the front desk, which they look upset because they don't know what's going on or why we're turning the dog in. Because these types of things usually don't happen where people adopt a pet and then they bring it back, So it upsets them. But I just was not in the mood to explain my situation. And to be quite honest, it was nobody's business what I was going through because it's my life. But I signed the last paper and I never hugged my dog again. And I never got to say goodbye to him or anything. And I remember before I walked out, I gave him to one of the workers there. And he was just turning around to look at me because I was about to walk out the door of the shelter. And that was the last time I ever saw him. And it was the hardest thing I ever had to go through, knowing that we had agreed to adopt an animal and he was family to us. And a lot of people, that I explained my story to didn't understand why it was so hard for me or why I was crying over a dog, People think it's just an animal or it's just a dog, but it's really not. And I know those of you who are watching who have pets at home, that you've had them for years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You may not think about it right now, but if that's ever happened to you, you're like, damn, it fucking sucks. Excuse my language, but it really does. And I remember I went home, I cried and everything, and my boyfriend was there for me. And I remember, we were just hoping, we'll go back and he'll still be there and we'll just readopt him and re-sign the papers and pay the fee. once we find an apartment or something that's pet friendly. So I went back, and I think it was only like 2 weeks later, because that day my best friend and I went to go eat, and she picked me up from school. She had a car. So I told her, hey, could you do me a favor and take me to the shelter to see if my dog is still there? Because I want to see if he's okay, maybe he needs to see me so he can kind of like get excited again, or maybe he's sad. So we went to the shelter. I asked for my dog just so I could see him, and they told me he wasn't there anymore, that he'd been adopted by a family. And I remember that was the saddest day of my life. I was just like reminded that every day was getting harder and harder. And I got in the car, I started crying in front of my best friend, and she started crying because she has pets at home and she knows what it feels like. And I remember I went to class, and I was just like, didn't even know what to do, so I just had to pretend to be okay. Then I went home, and my dad and my sister didn't know, but my mom came home and I had to tell her. My mom took it the hardest. It was very hard for my mom. So we cried. I remember I had never cried so long in my life. That day I just cried so much that I was so exhausted from crying, and every day was a struggle, and months went by, and Halloween passed, Thanksgiving passed, Christmas passed, New Year's passed, and my boyfriend and I luckily were getting closer and closer over these months. He was the only thing that was keeping me together, to be quite honest, and I'm just so grateful for him and my best friend, who were the only people that were there for me, let alone some other of my closest friends, maybe like 2 or 3 of my closest friends who lived really close to me at the time. And it was hard. Spring semester rolled around, so we're now in 2017, and my boyfriend and I were not doing the best, but we had a stable relationship. It's just there were a lot of things in the way, like obstacles that we had to constantly keep overcoming because of bad influences around our relationship. So it kind of drove us apart little by little, and it was very hard because with everything else that had happened, I was just like, what the hell is going on? And I forgot to mention this, but that summer, right after we had to give my dog back to the shelter, that summer my great grandmother passed away, and she was 86 or 87 years old, I believe. She was the cutest thing ever. We were not that close, but I did know her pretty well. I was her favorite. That's what she said. And she was always asking me about my grades, and she was so proud of me, and she was always, showing me off to the people in the family. And I grew up with her because she used to take care of me when I was a baby and when I was a toddler as well. But she had some issues with her health already, and she was just of old age, and there was nothing anyone could do at this point. I can't even think right now. I'm just so emotional. I don't even remember exactly what her condition was. I feel like I do know, I just can't think of it right now. But basically a vein erupted in her brain, and it just caused her to go into a coma. And I never got to speak to her again consciously. She never woke up, and we had to disconnect her from life support, and it was very sad. It was the first time I got to experience a close loved one die right before my eyes. It's a scary thing to hold somebody's hand that you love, and you're watching them fight for their dear life, in their deathbed and their hand gets cold. It's just so hard. It makes you really appreciate the things you have in life and the people who are in your life. You know? She didn't have a funeral because she didn't want one. She wanted us to make her a church mass, so that's exactly what we did for her. And I remember thinking, you know, this is gonna be way better for everybody because it's less painful. And I remember it was really hard to contain myself and as well as everybody else in the family because my great-grandmother had 4 children, which was my grandmother, her sister, and her 2 brothers. And I remember towards the end, I think, no, in the beginning of the church mass, they were carrying my great-grandmother's ashes down the aisle. And it was the saddest thing I had ever seen in my life because you see 4 older people in their mid-50s and 60s carrying a jar of ashes. But what I saw in my eyes were 4 children carrying their mother's ashes down the aisle with tears running down their face, hearts torn to pieces. And for me, that was sad. I was like, damn, you know, like, that's their mother. They're carrying down the aisle. It was something sad. But anyways, fast forward to spring 2017. There were just so many issues at our home with my grandparents, you know, things being said, fights happening, you know, 27 days out of the week. And things were getting harder. I just couldn't deal with a lot of things that were going on. And then my boyfriend and I would sometimes get into arguments over things that were happening around our relationship that I didn't like. So that was driving us apart. And my life was a mess. I remember one day I came home. And my mother goes, "We've been kicked out." And my heart shatters even more. I'm just like, what's going on? Like, why am I going through this? Why is God making me go through all of this? I don't understand why this is happening to me right now, this instant. I don't need this. And I'm just so negative and so depressed and torn. I'm just like, I don't understand why. So we got kicked out. And that was a terrible day because I walked into the fight and my grandfather was about to get physical with my mother, so I had to intervene. And then I got into a fight with him, so we immediately packed our stuff and left. I stayed at my best friend's house because her and her boyfriend have their own house, so I moved in for a couple of days. And then we moved into my grandmother's sister's house, who lived close to where our old house used to be. So we moved in with her, and at this point, everything was okay, somewhat. But my relationship was falling apart. So I couldn't focus at school. I was overeating. I had gained an immense amount of weight over that year and a half. And I couldn't handle it, so I dropped out of school. Nobody ever knew except my close friends. I was going to school, but I wasn't going to class. I was just sitting there reading books because it was the only thing that kept me sane, was to read books. And my boyfriend and I ended up splitting up over an issue we had with somebody from his past. And he left the valley where we lived and he came to San Diego, and I said to myself, fuck it, you know, my relationship is gone. I put in all that effort into someone for a year and, you know, it didn't work out. So my 21st birthday was about to roll around of this year, 2017, and I turned 21, which was, it's nice. I'm finally legal. But I spent my 21st birthday alone. Everybody was busy. There was just a lot of things going on, and my best friend was out of town, but she had came just in time at the end of the day. And we got some ice cream, and she took me home, and my boyfriend and I were not necessarily communicating day to day, but we were on speaking terms. So he would, update me once in a while to see how his life was going, and for me, it was important for both of us to have some type of communication, just so we could be there for each other. And my boyfriend was homeless, literally living in the streets for about 2 weeks, I want to say. It was so hard for me to pretend that it was okay to see him struggle. And it just randomly, everything turned around. My boyfriend got a job in San Diego. And after my birthday passed in June, I'm a June baby, I'm a Gemini, by the way. One day he calls me and he's like, hey, there's this school. He's like, I was in downtown exploring some colleges because I want to go back to community college. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you want to go back to school. He's like, yeah, I really want to finish and, get a career or something, And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Balance work and school. I'm really happy for you. And he goes, yeah, but there's this school here in downtown that's for architecture, and architecture is my major. So I'm like, wait, what is it called? And he tells me the name of the school. So I'm like, wait a minute, that's the school that I've been wanting to go to. And he goes, well, they're having an open house in July, so why don't you come up here and come see the school? You can stay at my place. And I'm like, this is really strange. Like, I just felt so out of place, but I'm like, wait, what's happening? So July rolls around, and I tell my mom, hey, this school opportunity, I might be able to get in. And she goes, go for it. So I come to San Diego. I don't even remember how I got to San Diego. I honestly don't remember how I came to San Diego. I don't remember who dropped me off that weekend, but I got dropped off, so I saw my boyfriend's place, which is actually where we live right now. And I stayed here for 2 weeks to explore the city and explore the school campus, and I ended up moving up here that same month. I went back to my house and packed all my stuff and said goodbye to my parents for the moment. And it was kind of a hard goodbye because, we had been going through a lot that year and a half, and it was just like, damn, now he's leaving to school and, we are here. So I came and I moved in with my boyfriend. I started school. I got a job. I work at Jack in the Box. My boyfriend and I go to the same school together. I ended up not going to the architecture school because the tuition was too expensive for me, and I was not economically or financially ready for that. So I attended community college with my boyfriend here at San Diego City College, and I actually ended up taking classes that I actually need to finish with. So in a year, I'll have my general education done, my CSU requirements, and my AA. So then I can switch to a different school and take classes for architecture and interior design. So we go to the same school, and it's funny because we work literally a block away from each other. We live together, and we go to the same school, so it's almost like everything was just meant to be, like everything just connected together. And I really wanted to share this story because I went through so much, and maybe my story might not mean anything to someone else. They might look at it and be like, that's nothing, I have been through worse, and that's totally fine, I understand. But this is my struggle, this is my story, this is what I went through, this is, for me, the pain that I consider suffering. I was lost for almost 2 years thinking my life was not going anywhere. What am I doing with school? What am I doing with myself? Everything was falling apart, that at one point I went to a mental health counselor because I was not mentally or emotionally okay with myself. So I had to take care of myself and put myself back together to feel okay again. And it's okay to ask for help. And that's exactly what I did. I asked for help and I got the help that I needed. So when I came up here, I made sure that I was ready to be back in my relationship and have my priorities straight. And now I have a job. I go to school with my boyfriend. We work a block away from each other and we live together and we pay bills together. And I'm an adult now and everything is the way it's supposed to be. And yes, I still miss my dog dearly. And yes, I still miss my great grandmother for dear life, who helps me a lot. I believe in so many things, but I'm here now and this is what matters. Making every second count. And my boyfriend and I have now been together for over a year and a half. In January, it'll be 2 years that we've known each other. But it's crazy the shit I had to go through to get to where I am right now. And I'm just so grateful that I'm here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else aside from the fact of everything I had to go through to get here, but I wouldn't want to go back to where I was. No matter if I had everything, no matter if I felt safer or better or happier at a time back in the past when we had a home and our family felt complete, my life changed, but I have learned to accept the greater things that are coming because I was able to overcome those struggles. And I'm sharing this story in hopes that it'll lift somebody's spirit up who feels like they're lost or like their path is nowhere to be shown in front of them. And just know that you can do it. I struggled for a year and a half, guys. I was depressed. And as soon as I moved up here and I took that big leap and that big risk of jumping into a relationship that I was not sure was going to survive, we made it work. And we started fresh and we're here now together in this wonderful place in San Diego, in this big beautiful city, fulfilling our dreams. And I'm just so lucky that I woke up and realized I need to make a move now before something else happens and keeps me or retains me from being happy and living my life. And I'm just so happy and happy to say that I lost a lot of weight. I weighed 175. Right now I weigh 155. Like, I'm so proud of myself. And that's not even with working out. I just got my life together and I stopped eating so much of the stuff that I was eating. I still eat bad food sometimes. I still eat Jack in the Box. I still eat McDonald's, once in a while. I still eat chips. They're like my guilty pleasure. But my boyfriend and I are trying to be healthy, and we are healthy together. We eat 3 times a day. We try to eat at home as much as possible. We go out with our friends. We drink. We have fun. We go to work. We go to school. Like, this is what life should be like at 21. Not losing my home, losing my dog, losing my family. But shit happens, and it's up to you to decide whether you're going to let all those events affect you in a negative way, or if you're going to get back up on your feet and say, this is what I need to do to move forward and leave this shit behind. And that's exactly what I did. It took me a year and a half. It might take somebody else 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, maybe almost their entire life. Caitlyn Jenner, it took her 65 years to decide that she needed to change her life and live her authentic self. Everybody's different. It might take somebody 2 months, 5 days, 5 seconds, even better. But just make sure you do it and you change it for yourself, not for your lover, not for your family, not for your friends. Do it for you because it's your life. And I just wanted to share this story with you guys because I think it's important to share our struggles with each other and support each other. And we can all learn something from one another, and I just think it's important. I mean, that's the whole point of my YouTube channel, is to grow. I look back at myself and I'm like, damn, I've grown a lot in my passion for makeup. But that's not everything that I want to share with you guys. I want to share my true authentic self. And I hope that this helps a lot of you out there who are watching this. And just know that everything will be okay eventually or soon. Or maybe not soon, but you have the power to make it okay. It's your life. Only you have the power to change it. And even when it changes for worse and you feel like you can't control it, because there are things we can't control, what you can control is your reaction and the way you live it. So keep that in mind and stay safe, you guys. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now, but I am just grateful that I'm so lucky to have the people that I have in my life. And I'm in a better place now, and I can film makeup tutorials again and be more inspired than ever. And I've been so MIA, and that's kind of why I wanted to share this with you guys, so you can know what's going on. And you know, hopefully my channel grows, and hopefully my viewers grow, my audience grows. I want to be out there. I want people to know who I am and what I'm going through, and help everybody else. Like, that's why I feel like I'm here, is to help people. And that's what I want to do. Yes, I'm a makeup artist, but I'm also an interior designer. I'm also an architect. I'm also a friend. I'm a boyfriend. I'm a son. I'm a brother to someone. You know? And I want to share all those things. I want to share life with everyone out there. You know? Spread love and positivity. But thank you so much for watching, you guys. I wanted to share something emotional for once, and you know, not just share makeup with you. I want you guys to see who I am behind the scenes, I'll call this. So if you can, subscribe to my channel. It's gonna help me. We're like halfway to 1,000 subscribers, and once we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will do my first giveaway. So I'm just waiting for that, and I already have the giveaway. I just need to give it away. So if you will help me reach 1,000 subscribers, that would be great. And let's try to get this video to at least 500 likes, since we're at 500, a little over 500 subscribers. Let's try to get it to 500 likes. And let's help me reach 1,000 subscribers, yeah? But anyways, you guys will see me very soon, hopefully in my next tutorial or story time. You never know. I have a lot of stories to tell. And thank you so much for your support, and everyone who's been a loyal subscriber and a new subscriber as well. Welcome. And thank you so much, you guys, for letting me feel free to share who I am on here, and for you to continue to watch me over and over again. It makes me feel understood, that people get me and that people want to see more of me. So it's a good feeling, and I want to thank you guys for that. But I'm gonna say goodbye, and I'll see you all very soon.